.380 pistol.
Yes.
He's
You
definitely
were
trying
going
to
to use that to
paint her as an
protect-
outsider,
And myself,
invading the
yes.
community.
Yeah, I mean, the problem
How
is you
are you
live in
gonna use that
Kenosha.
to
West Bend is right up the road.
property?
Yeah.
Sometimes the presence speaks louder than a lot of things.
The presence of what?
The presence of having the gun and being there at the business.
Were you openly carrying the gun?
Yes, I was.
So you didn't have it in a holster or in a
I did have
waistband,
it. Yeah, I'm sorry. It was on my side in a holster.
but you figured
She knows the law.
saw that they'd be scared off.
Somewhat, like I said, it's a presence. It's knowing that somebody's in the area, on the ground, standing there.
Armed society is
It's
a
kind of a
polite society.
deterrent to keep them away from the business.
And you'd agree with me that the AR-15s that the rest of the group had was an even bigger deterrent, correct?
A gun is a gun.
Objection.
And
Good answer.
well, a gun's
Good
not
answer.
just a gun. How many guns
Argumentative.
are you familiar
Objection,
with,
Anthony.
Quite a few. We grew up with them.
including
Uh-oh.
rifles,
Rifles, shotguns, yes. everything.
AR-15s?
Yes.
So you understand there's a big difference between an AR-15 and a
Sure.
pistol, correct?
Between an AR-15 and a pistol, yes.
There's a size difference. One's much bigger, correct?
And scarier.
They can all do the same
Very
thing.
scary.
They can all do the same thing.
Scope.
Got her. Got
Size
him. She got
doesn't
him.
change what can happen or what it does.
Ma'am, did you
Oh,
hear
the
my
chat's in
question?
love with grandma
Yes,
now.
it is much bigger.
Please answer it.
I'm sorry, yes.
The AR-15 fires a different caliber.
That's it.
than
Big bitchy to
handguns, correct?
grandma.
Yes.
It fires at
It's
a
very-
higher velocity, correct?
What he's testifying now?
Doing
Where's the
damage
objection?
He's testifying. He's been
much
testifying.
farther away.
What?
Yes.
It's a cross-examination, though.
In
He's
fact,
allowed to.
AR-15 rounds are capable of penetrating body armor, correct?
Oh, I did
Some
not.
degree of relevance
know
to the scope of direct.
Your Honor, this witness is not a gun expert, has not been qualified.
So you
in
followed
munitions.
this group
What are
of
we
people
talking
coming
I think
down
they're just letting him beat her
area to the 63rd
Yeah.
Street Car Source. Is
It
that
makes
right?
him look like a POS.
Right, he's beating
Before you got
himself
there,
up.
You had no idea.
Yeah, and remember, they're looking at the jury, so
Or
they-
anything like that. Fair to say?
Correct, yes, correct.
You said at that time you met up with someone who identified themselves as the owner of that location.
Yes.
You personally didn't have any interaction with that owner, did you?
Yeah, I had a conversation with him.
Do you remember speaking with Steve Spingola, an investigator with regard to this incident?
That sounds like an outsider name.
But
On September 8th, 2020, you had a phone call with him at about 5:30 p.m. Do you remember that?
no, I'm sorry, I don't recall what.
You said you've seen your statement to the FBI. Have you seen the statement that you gave to Investigator Spingola?
I guess not, no.
Let me, may I approach you on it?
Sure.
Well, I think you should first
Sure.
he
It's my house.
Not,
acknowledges the conversation because up to
Yeah.
this point, she says she doesn't know if she had such a conversation. And
So I'm
so
trying to help.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge.
but this is
Thank you,
not,
Judge.
this is not a prior statement. That's not a sworn statement. That's hearsay of the detective. It has
Steve, I'm
no,
gonna hand you a
this is the
document
only
here.
court where
Let's
this
take a look
nonsense
at
has
it,
been
take a
allowed
check.
so routinely.
And,
This is
please
not
let me
admissible
know
in
if
any
you're seeing-
American normal court.
And he's gonna now ask her, didn't you say, didn't you
can't do
say,
that. That's not a prior.
but watch him try,
Oh,
try.
he will, and the judge will, and the defense won't object, and the judge will let him get it in. This is,
I'm
for
not
those that
asking
don't know out there,
that.
you can't do this in a normal
I've
court.
seen it before.
No, I've never
Wait,
seen
here we
this.
go.
Here we go.
I've never seen this, she said.
Well, that's another story there.
Well,
Grandma
That's how she
won.
cuts him off there.
always lay your foundation on direct if you can. Cross it's.
You
it's rough.
told this individual, Mr. Spingola, that you didn't have any interaction with the owner of Car Source that night, didn't you?
No, I don't even recall the conversation, and that's not true.
Whew. That's
What's
why
he gonna
Richard's
do
letting
now?
it go, I guess.
Also, does she know who the owner is rather than the manager or operators or stuff like that?
Who cares? She just blew up his line of questioning. Look at him. He's fucking lit.
Yeah, that is exactly the body language. You're 100% right.
That you were going to
What else do I
the
have?
location at 59th and Sheridan. Is that correct?
Well, that was decided for us, but yes, that was the end plan, yes.
Who decided that?
I believe that was the owner and Nick Smith.
That was the first time that night that you'd ever met Nick Smith?
Yes,
You didn't know anything about him before?
nothing.
And yet, based on his decision and the owner's decision, you agreed voluntarily to go to the 59th Street Car Source to protect it. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's fair to say.
Nobody made you do that.
No, correct.
Think he'll ask the bailiff for his balls back?
You indicated at one point that the defendant asked you to hold on to his gun while he was helping someone. Is that right?
Yes.
What are you getting at, boy?
Do we have it with us? The gun? Can you get it out, please?
Better watch that.
Oh,
Grant's
the
gonna break
gun
out a
again.
switch.
Do you recall how the defendant was wearing that gun that night?
Wearing?
He had the strap around his shoulder and body, and then the gun pointing down.
Is it fair to say that the gun was sort of hanging down the front of his body in the middle?
I think when he was walking, yeah, but I know when he was standing there, he would always have a hand across the front of it. So, yeah.
I think it's weird to have testifying
I'm going to
police
ask
and
Detective
detectives sit
Howard
at
to
the
hold on to
table
that
We're
with
gonna
gun
wave the
us.
steering
and
wheel
show
gun
you.
around again.
As much as they can.
Check it again, please.
Do you notice how big and powerful this AR-15 is?
How big and manly.
Even if you didn't have any bullets
you
in it,
both
you could
confirm
probably
that they
beat a man to
I don't
death
like
with
the
it.
Smith and Wesson, but
Stand up a little
I prefer
bit,
the
Detective Howard. I
Remington.
want you to be where the jury can all see you. Why don't you step a little bit this way? Ms. Fiedler, can you tell us in your own words, and I'll try and have Detective Howard sort of demonstrate, how was the defendant holding that AR-15 when he was on the 59th Street property, if you know?
Well, the
He's
stuff was
amplifying
over
the
there.
importance of her testimony. She's now been on cross twice as long as she was on direct.
Yep.
Yeah,
Good enough.
this is a weird strategy by Binger. One bold strategy, Cotton.
With the
Wonder how
gun,
it worked
yeah,
out.
please hold on to it.
Just like
How
that.
could he gain by having
Okay.
her describe
So holding it with his right hand
He's
on
trying
the
to say-
pistol grip,
He's
Yes.
using her as a proxy for
And
Kyle. of saying
sometimes
dangerous
holding it with his
behavior
left hand
coming
or
from the
not.
community, but that's a trap
That could be, I don't
because it's
recall.
grandma up
I'm
there.
pretty sure that's
So,
right.
you know, you're not going to scare the
But when
jury
it-
with grandma.
when it came time for him to help someone out, he took it off and asked you to hold on to it. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Detective.
I thought he was going to be dumb enough to ask her to put it on.
You
Oh, yeah.
indicated that there was a
Of course,
time
I
in
hope
which
for-
some females came to the property and were taunting you. Is that
Yes,
right?
Yes.
And
I
you
just saw the
indicated that they were
caption only
chanting
during
Black
sex
Lives
and not
Matter.
very
I did.
Yes.
I
You
did
took
too.
that to be them taunting you?
No, they were saying other things.
You'd agree with me, though, the only thing you've told us so far is the words Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, but I could go into the whole story, but we'd be here all day.
You also said that there was a man wearing yellow pants.
Oh my God.
He got Grambo up there.
Is that right?
The
Was that
chat
one of
has
the cars
called her
that was on
Grambo.
the
Look
lot?
at Big
Yes.
Boy.
And
He
And the
looks
members of your
terrible.
group told him to
He's-
get off.
He's going to have a heart attack before this
And
is
in fact,
over.
pointed a gun
Might
at him
stroke out.
while telling him to do that, correct?
Yeah, he pointed his gun at us first.
Oh, the man in the yellow pants had a gun?
Yes, he had a gun. He
And
had a
then-
couple guns.
And then your group pointed guns back at him.
I don't know who pointed a gun at him. I don't know if they did or not. I didn't. I was busy watching my areas.
He pointed guns at us. I don't even know
So
if we pointed
you
guns back.
indicated earlier that you brought along your
Good
pistol to
response.
protect yourself and property. Is that right?
Yes.
How are you going to use it to protect property?
Oh,
Ask the
She's not
next-
on trial. She's not on trial.
Be armed while protecting one's property.
Oh, hey, we got.
It is not lawful to use deadly force in the protection of
Thanks. There
property.
you go, Judge.
And it's
In
important
Wisconsin, you can have a gun to
that we not
defend
get
property.
confused.
Oh,
I'm not trying to confuse the issue, Your Honor. I'm asking
Yes,
how she
you
was
are,
planning on
you coward.
using.
yes, yes.
Thank God the judge came to the rescue, stepped right in. Boom.
no, seriously.
I don't believe, I think I was going to come back to it.
Sure.
How are
I'm
you going to use that
Just skip it, Binger, little
protect
Binger.
property?
Like I said, it's a deterrent.
You weren't
You go.
planning on firing it to protect property, were you?
No,
You weren't planning on aiming it at anyone to protect property, were you?
no.
Most people who carry a gun aren't planning on doing anything with it.
You indicated that Mr. Rosenbaum made some statements, and I'm not going to repeat them all, but you indicated
on,
that
Bing,
no
do
one
it.
in your group
Hard R.
responded to anything he said. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's very fair.
You said you pretty much have to ignore that, correct?
Yes.
It's fair to say you didn't consider him an actual threat to your safety at that moment, did you?
Not for the distance and for the group that was around.
Not for the distance.
Mr. Lukowski characterized him as a babbling idiot. Would you agree with that?
I didn't hear him babbling. I just heard him. Well, I don't know if babble's a good word, if I may. He was just bitching. I thought it was
The court allowed her to say it. Remember how what's his name got in trouble for
It is.
a-holes?
You said Mr.
The judge
Rosenbaum's
plays bridge with
arm
this
went
lady.
up, and he might have thrown something, but you have no idea what.
Isn't it true? You have
No,
no
that's-
idea.
You were then asked about a period of time in which the Kenosha police pushed the crowd past the 59th Street location. Do you remember that part of the evening?
Yes.
And this
You
is the
can't,
time
as you
period
sit here
when the
today.
defendant has gone south of 60th, and you said he tried to come back at one point, etc. You remember that time period in the evening?
Yes. Yes.
There were no protesters around 59th Street after the police pushed them back at that time, correct?
That's not totally true. There was an empty lot directly across the street from us, and there were protesters that were walking on the other side of the barricades. The police were screaming at them to get away from there, and they just kept walking through.
She
After
said to
the
him,
police pushed
"That's
the
not
crowd,
true," about 9 times.
Did
Uh-huh.
any
She is
protesters
an amazing
come
eyewitness. She was born for this moment.
59th Street car shows?
After they pushed them past
Yeah.
60, they didn't push them past 60, past the gas station.
Let me make sure I'm being clear here.
Okay.
Ms. Fiedler, I'm going to use the pointer here on the map behind you. And just, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this map, so let me,
Yes,
there's
please.
a
Yes.
location on the map that is marked car source, and that is on the southwest corner of 59th Street and Sheridan Road. You'd agree with me that that's the property that you were at the whole evening, correct?
That's south, the one you were pointing at?
I'm pointing, you can see where I'm pointing.
Yes.
That is on the southwest corner
Oh, I'm
of
sorry.
59th Street and Sheridan Road.
Yes.
You'd agree with me that's the property you were at all evening, correct?
Yes.
And there's a time when the police moved down Sheridan past that location south and establish a line of armored and police vehicles here across the intersection of 60th and Sheridan. Do you remember that?
Yes.
After that, no protesters come back to 59th Street, correct?
No, that's not true.
You talked about the time when people were walking through the pile of rubble. Is that right?
No. I
Who-
didn't mention
what-
that.
What protesters came out and stood in front of 59th Street car stores after the police pushed them past?
They
He's
didn't.
winging
Well,
it.
the police also turned their Bearcats around and backed up, and all the protesters then came at us, and bricks were flying, bombs were flying, everything. They came at us with full force. That's why I had to go inside.
And I apologize. I probably have not explained myself properly. Let's
No.
go to
Quit
the end of
asking
the
questions.
evening. You remember
Sit down.
the defendant coming back, the shootings, all that. Leading up into that, the few minutes before that, that was the second time that the police had pushed everybody down to 60th, correct?
Yes, correct.
I'm talking about that period of time at the end. After that, when the police come by that final time, the protesters have all been cleared south of 60th, correct?
No.
That's not true.
You remember protesters around 59th Street car stores after
We
that?
were pelted for almost the whole night from after the Bearcats backed up. They came and they bombarded us. And then they left again because we had come out again. They heard shootings and some other people had left. But then they came back at us, and I was inside the building basically probably the rest of the evening.
You testified in response to one of the defense attorney's questions that you thought it was over when the police pushed the protesters south.
Correct. And they stopped there. That was before they had backed up. We had thought it was over.
So you talked about the defendant returning to the 59th Street car stores location.
Yes.
Correct. Now let's be clear. You never saw any of the shootings in this case.
That's correct.
You don't have any personal knowledge about any of that stuff, fair to
No.
say?
Yep. None.
You've been asked about Mr. Rosenbaum. At that evening, you had no idea what his name was.
Correct.
You've described what you saw about him that night, correct?
Yes.
As you sit here today, you know there's a person by the name of Anthony Huber, correct?
Yes.
That night, you never saw him once, correct?
No, I don't. No, I have not.
You'd agree with me, it's correct. You've never
Yes,
seen
I'm
him.
sorry. Yes, you're correct.
You know now, today, there's a person by the name of Gage Grosskreutz. Is that yes?
Correct.
That night, never saw him, had no idea who he was, correct? You indicated that when the defendant returned to your location, he said to you that he had shot someone. Is that right?
Correct.
Meaning one person.
Objection.
Objection.
That's what someone is, I guess.
He never said to you he shot 3 people, did he?
No.
He never told you that any of those people had a gun, did he?
No, he didn't really describe anything about what had happened.
He never told you that any of those people threatened him in any way, did he? He never told you that any of those people had any weapons on them, did he?
Oh my God.
Let's run through a list of things he didn't say.
Correct.
Correct. I'm sorry.
He could have started off with this, though, and he'd have a cross-examination here.
There came a time in which
He never
Nick
said he
Smith
prefers pizza. to
came
hot
back to that location and said the police were coming, correct?
Yes.
And after that, all of you got out of there, correct?
Not immediately.
In your FBI statement, you said soon after Nick came into the location and
This is
stated that
improper
police were
use.
coming to the
Objection.
building.
Right, it's not her
Everyone
statement.
then left the building,
It's the
correct?
FBI's
No, I
notes.
had to go get the guys off the roof.
but then everybody left, correct?
We came down and everybody else that was down there previously was gone. Yes.
Including the defendant,
Yes.
after hearing that police were coming, correct?
I thought they left with Nick. I didn't know.
Are they going with fleeing the
I have nothing
police
further.
here when he turned himself in that night?
After he got pepper sprayed by said police?
You were asked about Mr. Rosenbaum, and there was questions about how you would describe him and how others had